Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the today's session on SaaS business in the time of COVID-19. And today we have our celebrated entrepreneurs, Bhanu Chopra from RateGain, Jasminder Gulati from Nowfloats, and Pallav Nadhani from FusionCharts and NowCharts.com. I will just, we already are like 7 minutes into the late into the session, but so I won't take much of a time. I'll leave it to Bhanu. Only two announcements from my side. Guys, you can send us your questions in the chat box. You have a chat box. Please utilize it as much as you can. We have a feedback questionnaire towards the end. Just two questions at the end. Will not take more than 20 seconds of yours to leave your feedback so that we know what's working out, what's not working out, and what we could do next. And please talk about the session on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, whichever is your poison, whichever is your go-to place. Use it. Use hashtag India Productified. And thanks a lot. Over to you, Bhanu.
So thanks, Avor. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope all of you guys are safe and your families are well. I know these are very challenging times for all of us. So what we wanted to do today is really get some of the leading SaaS entrepreneurs in the country to share their approach to this crisis situation. So let me go ahead and introduce you to the panelists. So I'm joined today by Jasminder Singh Gulati. He's the co-founder of Nowfloats that enables small businesses to get an online presence easily and instantly. And as luck would have it, Reliance Jio acquired Nowfloats in December 2019. So talk about timing. And Just has worked with Microsoft for over a decade. And then I'm also joined by Pallav, who's a good friend as well. He's the founder of FusionCharts, which he bootstrapped to 28,000 customers worldwide and sold to Hydra last month. So again, great timing, Pallav. Currently, he's building end-user BI tools under charts.com, and he's also an angel investor in about 30 companies in India and US. So after the session, if people are cash-strapped and looking for funding options, reach out to Pallav. Let me now introduce myself. I'll be moderating the session. I am founder of RateGain. We provide revenue maximization solutions to travel and hospitality industry. We work with all the top 25 OTAs in the world, the top 400 hotel chains, top 7 car rental companies, and the top cruise liners. Pretty much every major blue chip travel and hospitality company is our customer. So when you talk about the impact, we are severely impacted, and I'm happy to share, how we're approaching the situation. So the topics that we really wanted to cover today is, I think, first and foremost, is to think about what are the survival techniques. I think everybody is talking about this in times like this. It's very, very important to really focus on the short term and seeing yourself through this period. So how do you manage your finance and liquidity? How do you manage your different constituents, shareholders, customers, employees? How do you, I think, given the fact that all of us run SaaS companies, we are used to the whole work from home culture, but we learn from the panelists today what are their tips and tricks to keep the teams aligned. And finally, when do we get back to normal? What is everybody's view on the panel on how long is this going to last? And, how long do you plan the scenario for? And, in these times, are there opportunities that we can pivot to? So what I'll do now is I'll go back to my panelists and let each one speak to the top 3 things that they think one must pay attention to. And also please talk about what are the challenges that you're seeing in your respective business, because I think all of us are seeing different impact depending on the industry that we are in. And I think it'll be good for the audience to hear what we are seeing in our respective businesses. So Pallav, why don't you go first?
Sure. Thanks, Bhanu, and thanks everyone for joining in. So just to give you some background, I've been running FusionCharts for the last 18 years. So I've seen one global financial crisis, which was similar to this, but not as steep and not as fast as this. Though that did hurt us a little, but we have had three big near-death moments in our company across in different phases of our life. And one thing I've realized that each of these do present an opportunity as well. While yes, we were lucky to get on the timing of the acquisition last month, but the things could have been very different if we did not make some of those decisions. Call it jugaad, call it hacky way. It just worked for us. So I'll detail those stories in an anecdotal way when we come to individual points. But to the key point, Bhanu, that you talked about, I think the first thing that we need to look at this is not your typical economic downturn. This is first and foremost a health crisis. So the first thing which we need to take care of as entrepreneurs is the importance of keeping our people healthy and keeping them ensure that their life is safe. So whether it's working from home, whether it's enabling them with tools, whether it's keeping them giving them psychological safety to be able to do all of this, that is the first and foremost. So I'm sure now that with the lockdown, everybody is working from home, but that's something we did pretty early when we realized that this could be one of the key things that could at least help us and our employees keep safe. So that is on the health side. Second is obviously everybody's questioning about survivability of the business. Now, the survivability is depending on your financial position in terms of where you are in the product market fit cycle, in terms of your accounts outstanding, in terms of how safe are your customers, in terms of how much money you have in the bank. And all of these are different things that you will need to look at it. Like, for example, we've been very lucky that we've been bootstrapped and we have had our cash flows, at least in the FusionCharts business. So we do run two other businesses right now, even after the FusionCharts acquisition, and we are getting hit there as well. So first is your revenue might not be equal to cash flow right now. While it looks good that you're getting an ARR of X $100,000 next month, you do not know how much of that is actually going to convert it into cash. So more than the revenue, the first thing I'll look at it is cash flow. Is that cash really coming in? Is it delayed? Are people churning out? Are they downgrading? Are they asking for some relief? All of those have to be looked from realistic scenarios. So this is something which we had to do when we were in 2008 financial crisis. We did grow a little bit then, but obviously we were impacted on the amount of growth that we could have done. So we looked at some of our larger customers and we said, can we create these customer cohorts where we know that these customers are solid, they might not go down. Either they're large companies, public companies, they might say give us 3 months delay in payment. They might say that okay, give us this 10% discount or whatever that is, but they're not going to go down because it's something which is, it's our product is not a mission critical part, but our product is an important part of their software as well. So how do we ensure that we have these cohorts of these companies where we know this is our minimum cash flow that we are getting, this is something which we get, it is better, and this is something we know that, let's say, other startups were getting hurt, and if you're selling to startups primarily, this is something which is going to happen, that they might be looking out saying, hey, we don't have money, how can we give it to you? Second thing is in terms of how long will it go, I don't think anybody has an answer. So some people are saying it will be a V-shaped recovery, some are saying it's a U-shaped recovery, some are saying it's a L-shaped recovery in an economic term. I would say plan for all those scenarios and probably plan for the worst and the mid part of it. So will things be normal? I don't think we are saying we believe that everything will be normal. There will be a post new normal in the world. So from a cash flow scenario, at least plan for 12 months. And to be able to do that, I'll look at my spends into two categories. What are the absolute essential spends I need to do to be able to at least serve my existing customers, even if I don't add any more customers? What is the absolute minimal cost? Is it one DevOps guy, one customer support guy, my infrastructure cost? That's my absolute minimal. Then if I'm looking at, hey, based on my current pipeline, if I'm adding more, what is that cost? Then on top of that, if I'm left with some money based on my cash flow analysis, I'll say, hey, in these 12 months, if I'm going to spend on marketing, do I have an absolute visibility? If I'm spending this $1, I'm going to get at least $1 or more back. By cutting non-discretionary spend, which is your experimentation in terms of marketing, things which are not sure to give you money, new product features which nobody has asked, and also doing things which actually help you strengthen your processes. Third is, this is actually a good time to sort of go back internally and look at, because all of you might have additional time with your engineering product, because there might not be a lot of things to build with respect to newer things. So how do you strengthen your internal processes? How do you make your sales team better? How do you do upskilling of some of the people? All of those things, which we sort of did back in 2008 when we were going through this as well. And eventually we did emerge out slightly stronger than we were at that point in time. So I'll come back to the anecdotal stories in the rest of the conversation. Over to you, Jas.
Sure. So, I'll probably build on what Pallav has said. So already, and I have been saying a few things very consistently, and for the sake of repeating them and for the sake of being boring, I'm going to obviously stick to what I feel because there's no change in that. So the things that I strongly believe are that as we all know, that's everything that we are doing or what we are going through is perhaps true for everybody on earth, right? I mean, let's consider that first. Your customers, your partners, your team, we're all going through, if I may say so openly, shit at the same time. So this is a concurrent shit happening across the world, and all of us are in it, right? So that is both a feature and a bug, guys. And I strongly believe that if every relationship that you have, professional and personal, is going through the same mechanisms, I think there is an opportunity to do a couple of things. One is, you are not different, so understand that, and try to be as genuine and authentic in your discussions and your the way you communicate, because everybody is going through it. You're not the only one. So that is a very fundamental base level first thing, that you're not in this alone. So that's very important for you to understand. Now, is this an opportunity for some of you to go do something different, or to go do things which you have never done on your product, or to rebuild your some customer relationships? Absolutely. Again, one of the lines I've used often, and it's don't take this in an insensitive way. I don't mean to. It's because this time is actually a feature. It's not a bug, guys. It's the best time you can get to redo anything that you wanted to do in your business. That's the way I approach it. And this is the time to go, as Pallav also said, rebuild that feature, fine tune that feature, find loyalty in your teams, build deeper customer relationships, talk to your vendors, talk to the people whom you own rentals, talk to the AWS, talk to the Google Clouds of the world. This is the time. Everybody is expecting you to do this. So don't run away from the fundamentals of the situation first. As a SaaS company, you have a lot of infrastructure, dependency. You're in fact somewhat better off than many other companies and businesses on earth. You're a SaaS company. You can afford to sell online. You can afford to reach out customers online. It's somewhat fair to say that most of your customers are tech savvy if you're a SaaS company. Somewhat fair. It's not a totally fair statement, but yeah, take it as if it's a fair statement, because the people who are not buying your stuff earlier are probably gonna reach out to you if your product is in that category, is going to reach out to you because they have no choice. So for SaaS companies, this is our demonetization period. This is our demonetization phase. People are online, people are wherever they are, even WhatsApp. I mean, this is the time to do that campaign. And that's a segue to the last point that I want to make. I've been talking a lot about right sizing. I've been talking a lot about this moment that we are in. But the largest thing you can do for yourself at this time is to reskill yourself and do things you've never done before. And I'm a big proponent of that, perhaps because I do a lot of things with my own hand. I'm just expecting the world to do it and mirror me. That's a personality flaw that I probably have, but it's also something that I want to share. It's critical that entrepreneurs, founders, business owners, senior leaders, you have to, this is the opportunity to do things. You don't have the liberty to walk across the corridor to talk to someone and give them a brief, and then that person does the job and hopefully doesn't do the job. We all suffer from that as well. We know this. But this is the time to go do those campaigns yourself. Go do the Wix and the HubSpots and the all the things that to be learned yourself. This is the time to go build your own campaigns on Canva, because they have made it that simple. The world has made everything so simple. My last feedback to everyone before I hand it over back to you, Bhanu, is this is the opportunity. You're sitting in your house, hopefully undistracted. You have been able to define new processes. You've been able to carve out pieces of work to your team, which you've never done before in your life. Now you're being forced to write down the small briefs for your team to do something, or even talk about those briefs. You're becoming more articulate. You're becoming more specific. You're becoming very real in your conversations at home, within your professional colleagues. You are becoming that already. Okay, you're not wasting anybody's time. You're really defining the problem statement well. I'm asking you to go one step ahead and do things for yourself. Learn to do things. Learn to run your campaigns yourself. You have no choice, by the way. I didn't want to say it this way, but you have no choice. You'll have to build the next campaign yourself. You'll have to open HubSpot. You'll have to open Canva. You'll have to open Wix. You'll have to open Mixpanel. You'll have to open Google Analytics. Gosh, guys, you'll have to do all of those, which you were hoping somebody else would help you with. I encourage all of you. One gentleman did this to me 20 years back, and that changed my life. He told me, Jas, get up. I got up from my seat. He says, and this exactly happened in 2000. I used to run the .com. I used to run the e-commerce strategy for Microsoft in India. My job was strategy, e-commerce in 2000. And my boss, and then the whole thing, just died in front of our eyes. But this one gentleman, one boss asked me to do the following. He says, get up, Jas. I said, why? He says, get up from your seat. And I got up. He says, look behind you. I said, why? He says, look behind you. And I looked and I said, what do you see? I said, I see a wall. He says, do you see anybody else? I said, no. He says, yeah, there's nobody behind you. So get down to work. So even in a Microsoft in those days, he told me that there was nobody behind you because we had lost some people to the e-commerce team because of the .com bubble had lost people overnight. So I leave you with that thought that these are the times to get up and look behind you and find that there's no one. And it's your company, it's your vision, it's your baby. I'm not sure you guys want to let it go so easily. So this is a very, very interesting time. This is a feature time, guys. It's not a bug time. Trust me. Bhanu, over to you.
Yeah. So thanks, Just. Thanks for the positive thoughts that you just shared with everybody. And I think what I heard Just and Pallav say is really this is an opportunity for us to introspect. And I actually saw a very nice quote on LinkedIn also about this is, when there are storms at the seas, fishermen, don't go out to fish and catch fish, but they stay at land and fix the nets. So I don't think anything could better sum up the sentiment of the panelists here. I did want to get into, when we're talking about survival, because, cash is so important. And I think, Pallav, you mentioned plan for like a runway of 12 months. How do what is sort of the general modeling approach you're using on revenue and costs? I heard Just talk about doing, new sales. Is it really realistic? Are people even buying anything right now? I mean, I can give perspective on our business, but I'd love for you guys to talk about when you're sort of doing the financial modeling, what are you assuming on churn rates? What are you assuming on new sales? How are you redefining your cost structures, etc.?
Correct. Just you want to go ahead? Okay. So, Anuj, first, let me answer the question. Are people buying? I think absolutely yes. So there are three kinds of businesses might put in the current scenario. There are businesses which are actually growing because of COVID, like think of online education, gaming, collaboration. The second layer is businesses who are getting hit, but it's a mix of them getting hit and your customers, which bracket we are in. We are not your mission critical application, but let's say when I'm talking from FusionCharts perspective, because you're working remotely, because people still need to look at their data, make decisions, you need charts. Now there are people who are looking for charts, and then there are people saying, okay, I don't have money, so I won't pay you for the charts. And then on the, let's say, the outer layer is, let's say, businesses who are serving industries which have been terribly hit and where that's taking a hit. So that being said, there are always customers, even existing customers, who might need newer solutions from you. Your existing product might not work. It might be a small pivot based on what your specialization is. But the most important thing, and I think Jas had also mentioned this in the last call, is customer communication. Calling them up and saying, hey, What do you need? How can we help you? Is it just the payment terms? Is it something you're building? Because all of them have the single goal right now is to survive and come out of it. So even if you need to survive, like look at it, we are all paying for Zoom or GoToMeeting. We are all paying for Slack, the basic email communication. There are a bunch of softwares we ourselves use, and even if we are running out of cash, there are certain softwares you can't shut off. There are certain softwares where you say, if I shut this off, I'll be running into some trouble. Let me see if I can go to the vendor and ask for a 30%, 50% discount, or 6 months I don't want to pay. There are things like, let's say your office rental, if you're lucky enough, you have a force majeure clause and they will give you a extension of that and not take money for that. So all of those are things from a cost perspective where you're saying, I'm going to optimize. Like simple things like right now, the bids for Google AdWords are probably at the lowest for some of the categories. If you know that your conversion rates are good, it's a good time for you to bid in. A lot of such opportunities are out there. So from a cost modeling perspective, like I said, there have to be 3 scenarios that typically, like we plan for it this way. What if we don't acquire any customer, but we have to keep the lights running? Again, our business is slightly different. We have very little infra cost given that we are a library company. So our cost is like, let's say a couple of developers, couple of support people, and essentially me to be able to run the business. This is back in 2008. We were a small team, I think about 30 odd people back then. The second is if you're getting some new sales from existing products, then some feature development, probably minimal sales, and we are an inside sales company, and then obviously the customer support. See if we are seeing, hey, the leads are coming in and we are still able to convert them. Maybe we don't have the price advantage, maybe the payment terms are bad, but that's a different scenario. In all of these scenarios, we were essentially looking at what is it that we need to keep the lights on, and if we need to grow, what is it that we need to do. So from a 12-month scenario, because that is something which may happen, nobody can as of now say that is it a 3 month, 6 month, 12, or even beyond. But 12 is at least something where you know that it's another opportunity for you to play. And if you have competitors who are not planning for minimum 12, you're going to be the last man standing. And when the industry recovers and your product is still useful, then your growth is going to be much higher with respect to that. With respect to churn, these are unprecedented times. So unless you have some data, you cannot know. The only thing again I keep on thinking is revenue is not equal to cash flow. So focus on the cash flow because everybody will have bills to pay. See which bills you can pay later. Like, can you call your vendor and say, I'm going to either ask for a discount or delay of that, because it percolates. Your customer is going to ask you for a discount. You're going to call your vendors for a discount. That entire cycle is going to go around that. So different means to be able to do that. And then discretionary spends like that new fancy laptop or that new fancy chair or that expensive branding marketing campaign. At a broad level, I would say let's not do it. And even the newer product idea, unless you're sure that this is going to be the thing which is going to change for you, and you have a lot of surety on that based on customer conversations, or probably pause that for a bit, because the focus right now is to survive this, be the last man standing, be still relevant to the customers, because once things turn around, and if you are around and you've been a good partner to your customers and also to your people as well, you will be in a much better shape compared to maybe the other competitors out there. That's my take on this.
Great. Yes.
Yeah. So nothing much to add there. You know, all the points are extremely valid, and that's a this is the time to do this, right? I mean, your customer. So you know, if your product has certain features which you think people don't need at this time, I'm asking all of you to rethink that. And that's another big angle that you know people are missing out, saying कि मेरा product तो अभी लोगों को चाहिए ही नहीं, right? They're all in that mode of saying, you know, my product doesn't help me. But you know, I'm imagining at least about 20 to 40% people in this call whose product is not really fitting into a need of the customers in today can, you know, pivot little sideways, little up or little down, and make themselves heard or make themselves you know, compelling product. And you know, I'll give you 2-3 examples. This community app that I know pivoted to playing online tombola. You know, this was how, just like MyGate you know, gets into communities of societies, this guy pivoted to playing tombola. I found that very nice. That you know, Zomato is delivering groceries. I mean, you know, this is a scaled company changing. They are not in the grocery business. You would say to me that they are somewhat in the business of logistics and, you know, last mile, certainly, but you know, grocery is a very different ball game. You know, they've got into it, right? So a bunch of examples, you know, big companies, small companies, everybody is doing a little bit here and there. I mean, you know, Santosh from Explara reached out to all of us and said that, you know, hey, I'm you know, willing to give my team if you want to build a prototype. That itself is a slight change, no? I mean, he's telling people that you want to build your startup, and my team is available. So you don't have to necessarily put a feature in your product in these days, or do something or pivot somewhere. Hey, you can just outsource your team if they're capable to people. So reach out guys. People are reaching out. The communication is the hallmark of this conversation. You've got to reach out to your customers. You have to reach out to your team. You got to do that.
Just to add to this, Bhanu, another example. So there's an accelerator called Upeka. What they did is within their portfolio company, they created something called a quilt bazaar, where people say, this is my ask, this is what I can give, like what Jas was saying about Santosh as well. And another example is somebody who was building software for restaurant, started doing gift card for restaurant, where you pay in advance and then you redeem it later, so that restaurants have longevity. Or kitchens where they can give that food out, given that they already have the industrial equipments and everything. So funnily, yesterday, I learned a new term for it from my 2.5-year-old daughter. So we gave her lemons and she was just squeezing, and we asked, what are you doing? Instead of saying playing, she said, I'm lemoning. And then I realized when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, but the process, we can call it lemoning.
That's amazing. So, I also wanted to add a little bit of tidbit here on managing your cash flows. I think it's very, very important, because as time progresses, because I think there's a big unknown on how long this will last. So I highly recommend everybody to think about 3 possible scenarios: the worst case, the best case, and somewhere in the middle, and really plan according to that. I think I would also love to hear, what are you guys doing in terms of cash flows? Is that a problem? I can talk about RateGain, because we focus on travel and hospitality, and I don't think any industry is more hurt than travel and hospitality. And we are having serious cash flow issues where customers have to pay us, and we're using sort of like a stick and carrot approach. So what we're saying is, look, some of our stuff that we do for you is mission critical, and you need to pay us, and we will play ball with you. We understand, we're empathetic about your situation. We know you want to have a payment holiday, and we can do a deferred payment over a period of time, do it in installments. But if you go beyond that, you need to pay us some interest. But on the carrot side, there's also discounting, where we're saying, pay us now and we will give you a 10-20% discount. Are you guys feeling stressed about cash flow at all? Are there any innovative things that you can share with the audience that you are doing to ensure that the money keeps coming in?
So some of the things we did in the past was like, let's say if a customer is on a monthly plan, so our typical plans are annual, but if a customer is on a monthly plan, some of them are on quarterly or monthly, and if they have the cash, to ask them to prepay with that discount. For some larger customers, we even asked them to pay for 5 years, where we said, hey, we'll give you this 5 years and we'll throw in this product for free. So mostly it was about, can we collect that cash right now, given that it's an unprecedented scenario which may happen. But I think we were still in a fortunate scenario, given that we are bootstrapped, so we are generating cash, and most of our customers were, so we were never more than, like, no single customer was more than 2% of our revenue. So that risk was something which was automatically managed. So I think we just got a little lucky there in our sense.
Okay, great. Jess, do you want to add anything there?
So yeah, Pallav and I are quite similar in our business models that way, right? We also have a fair amount of over 50,000 paying customers. So the ticket size is so small in our business that you really don't you've not risked your business on one particular customer, and we are totally SMB facing, right? I mean, SMB, so we've not even, India has not even got a percentage point into digitalization of SMB. So right, that's a big market. So we were lucky in many ways there. Yeah, but has the business gone down? Absolutely. What are we doing? So we're focusing on renewals.
So just in terms of your business, the way I understand it is SMB, and I think what I'm hearing. I was on a call with Rajan, who used to be head of Google and now is heading the search, and he mentioned to me a lot of SaaS companies that focus on SMB, and I'm sure there are a bunch of people out there who focus on the SMB segment are seeing a lot of pain in terms of payment collections, especially if it's the Indian market. Do you see that? Are your customers in India paying you Is it because you're mission critical? Anything you are doing there?
Lot of answers, right? Short answer is no, they're not paying. Long answer is you got to change, which means you got to change your business model. You got to start giving a little bit of, and the way we discount is we add more subscription time. So, what was, 10,000 rupees for a year is now 10,000 rupees for 1.5 years, because collection of money is very important. So those are some of the strategies you got to start thinking, is saying, can you give customer an incentive in the current times to part with money with you, and can you overload more options for them? So those are the things you got to think through while maintaining your cash flow. Our customers, as I told you, tough days for everyone, but for example, it's forced us to do something. We were predominantly a very feet on the street kind of a company for many years. We've taken a lot of effort to become a completely inside sales, online sales kind of a company. But one of the things which has worked out is, our renewals, at least most of them, majority means over 80% renewals are now coming online only through an online interaction. And that's important for us. So which means we've been able to take this time to do something else, which is more aligned to our strategic goals. But this time has just tipped it over. It's been a watershed time for us from that perspective. So yeah, those are some of the thoughts.
So guys, what I'll do is I'll start mixing in some of the audience questions. I think I see this one from Anup Agarwal, and Pallav, it's for you, but I think we can all address it. It's about bootstrap companies. So, the question is, while we're trying to keep the lights on, few of our recently funded competitors are going all out on marketing. How should we handle the situation? I think this is a pain point for bootstrap companies, people who are low on cash. What do you do around funding right now? Is this even a good time to go out and raise more money? What are potential sources of money right now if you are in a bootstrap, or even if you're running out of funds?
So Manu, I think it's a sort of a bad time to go after new money, especially an investor is going to look at his existing companies and keep money for follow on for the existing companies. While a lot of them publicly say that they're open for business, but many of them have slowed down, or they are primarily looking at very specific areas, which has been accelerated because of this COVID-19 scenario. So it's not a great time, and plus the terms or the valuations that you will get is also not great. But to answer the first question, if the competition is raising money and they're spending it, I'm assuming you are in a space which is positively impacted by COVID in a good sense, which means that these competitors are using that money for marketing. If you first have existing customers, I would probably first talk to them and ensure they don't drop out. If the competition is stealing that part of your customer base, then you are in trouble. B, whatever help you get this organic set of customers is something you should continue doing that, and think of how you can optimize doing those organic activities. There have been enough stories where enough and more competitors raised a lot of money and then they burnt out because the focus was on growth. Either customer relationships took a hit or the product took a hit. And it's not a sprint; it's a marathon. Running every company is a marathon. While we all want to be overnight successes and build a company and sell in 2 years, but that's not the norm. So good customer relationships, existing organic things you're doing, better processes and systems to do better organic things that you're doing, and ensuring that your product is well suited for that and not getting defocused. More startups die of indigestion as opposed to them dying of starvation. So you may not grow as fast as your funded company, but you may grow consistently and you will have lesser guns to your head. That is my approach, and more so I have a bias towards bootstrapping, so take it with a pinch of salt.
Just you have any additional points there? How can companies go after more money right now?
No money left in the market. No need to go after that. That's why I said improve your capabilities. If you are thinking of spending money in marketing, just go learn yourself how to send a tweet and be on LinkedIn and to do your own stuff. It helps. I have seen it over the last 10 days. It helping a couple of organizations I mentor. So yeah, no excuses, please. This is not the time to do that.
Okay, great. I'll just add, and I agree with both Pallav and Jas. I think it's you have to be very careful about what you prioritize in times like this, and the return on effort on going out and doing a new process in terms of fundraising will have limited realization. But I think there is also opportunity to have discussions with people, people who you've interacted with in the past, and maybe it was a valuation mismatch. Those are discussions that could be had. I think there is a possibility to sort of test the waters. I think there is also options available to more mature businesses to look at venture debt. There are companies like Innovin, Altiria, and Trifecta that specialize in venture debt. So it's not really, bank financing. But I think what is important in those cases is that, you have had a first round of VC funding in place. And obviously everybody is looking at these opportunities with a much, with a much finer lens. So there's obviously going to be a lot more scrutiny. So one has to be, very, very mindful of all of that before going and engaging in these conversations. I'd like to encourage at this point for all of you to use the tool to send in more questions. I'll continue to ask, and when I see more questions pop up, I'll ask the panelists of those questions as well. So I think one other sort of important discussion point is in times like this, as a leader, it's difficult for us because we're sort of facing stressful times from the overall market, from our employees, from our customers, our shareholders. So how do you guys manage yourself? How do you manage your emotions? And just I love the positivity that you had in your opening remarks. How do you make that happen?
How do you make that happen? The difficult hai. I think it's a very hard personality trait. But I think this is the best time to develop that. We don't change as people easily, and therefore there has to be sometimes large forcing factors, external events which make people change. As entrepreneurs, I think you have no choice but to be positive. So I don't know if I mean, if you are going to be negative in these times, you're going to bring down everything around you, including your family, teams, and your business. So you got to think what's at stake. And I know being positive sometimes gets confused by being very exuberant and very extrovertish. I come out as a person who's, let's say, able to articulate, very aggressively or put forward my point, with a certain, gravity to it. Not many people, can do this, and therefore to them I'm asking, in whichever way you can do it, communicate. I go back to it. The day you start communicating to people in whichever way you have, you don't have to be all out. You just one-on-ones. You're not comfortable with teams, which anyways, it's not a very good personality trait if you cannot speak to your teams. But if you cannot, let's say, or you have some reservations, talk to people again and again is what I'm saying. Your positivity will come from other people. Talk to your family, talk to your teams. You will see how positive people are. You are entrepreneurs mostly in this call. I'm assuming that you've got so much of pressure of trying to do something. Think about the chappie who gets his salary from you, and don't think of that person feeling bad about these things, but think about that personality whose life is completely based around that paycheck. Your life is not. You have chosen to be an entrepreneur. You've chosen to be a founder. Your brain is wired completely differently, guys. But the people working for you, I mean, their stress is 10 times more. I can guarantee you this. They are going through higher stress than founders, because as founders, you are hustlers in your head. Kar lenge yaar. That's what has made you founders, right? That's why you quit your safe job, and that DNA exists with you, right? You will just are probably going through a tougher time these days. But please, I mean, think about all the people who depend on you, who are not who don't have the same courage and who don't follow the same value system that you have. So please, your positivity is unfortunately not a choice. If this requires you to listen to music and listen to a guru or listen to some motivational talk, go for a run, you please figure that out. You have no choice. Spend some times with you to get energized, please. I mean, you have no choice. I mean, that's all.
Yeah. So I'd like to share a few tips around this, because I strongly believe in trying times like these. It's absolutely critical for the leader to carry a positive aura around them, because your people, sort of feed off that. And I've determined simple tips and tricks to, continue to have that positivity. I mean, I have a smile on my face, but I can tell you, of everybody who's on the panel today, I can guarantee you we're most impacted as a business than anybody else. But I am very confident as we come out of this, we will be stronger. We'll be the last man standing. I already see signs of some of our competitors folding, and our customers are talking about moving that business to us. So what are my sort of tips and tricks? The simple personal things that I do. One is meditate. I mean, people who know me will can't believe that I have the ability to meditate. But there is a very nice app called Headspace. There are other apps like Calm, and people who haven't experienced it, just use the guided courses that they have. In most cases, it's free. Second thing is, have some sort of a fitness regimen to get your negativity out of your system, the negative toxins. The third thing I do is have, what Jess was alluding to, is have a gratitude prayer. I know we're all in a tough spot, but if you sort of think about all the blessings that you have, the support system that you have, that can also feed you some positivity on how you sort of conduct yourself. And lastly is looking for good in everything, and good in the situation you're in, good in the people that you work with, and genuinely complimenting them and finding because those lead to sort of opportunities to pivot as well. So now let me very quickly move to the questions as well, because I know we have about 10-12 minutes. And guys, just be as brief as you can, because I want to get to as many as possible. At what time do you consider laying off people? Pallav?
Uh, so it's a nuanced question. So the first rule is, if you have to lay it off all at once, like rip the band-aid off. Don't create that psychological fear in the company that every week or every month somebody is going to be laid off. So fortunately, till now, we haven't had to do that. But I mean, again, this is on the scenario planning. Like, if you realize that your field sales is not going to be relevant anymore because everybody's on Zoom on go-to calls, that's a hard call you have to take. If you realize your marketing is not giving you money, you have to take those calls. But apart from taking those calls, apart from just laying off, can you ensure that you're able to find those guys a job, run a virtual job fair for them, not destroy that relationship with the potential employee? Because laying off is one of the toughest thing an entrepreneur can do. You have built your team, you have hired them, you have trained them. There's an emotional attachment with that. So when to lay off is more nuanced, but how to lay off and what to do after layoff is probably as important as when to lay off.
Yeah. Just do you want to add anything?
बहुत tough question है. The toughest thing to put from a context perspective, we let go of not in this corona time last year. We let go because of a business change and a pivot that we had to do. We let go of substantial set of numbers, substantial. And the only hint I'll give you that we were 1,000 people once, right? So that substantial means a very big number, okay, at any base. But the other thing which I told in one of the other calls I did, I said, and I don't know how to answer this properly now. I had an answer for this about 2 weeks back. And from all the people who talked to me and spoke to me, my first advisory, thanks to, I will thank Manish Sharma of Printo, who ran a session at the Bloom Ventures. We had an internal talk, and I think he did that session, whatever, give or take 15 days back. See, there was a time to let go of people. I'll let you know. The people who moved fast and let go of their people when things were not as bad as today, I think they've done their deeds. They moved swiftly. They moved. I just over the last week, or just in the last week, I'm having a very hard emotional battle with myself to give this advice to anyone. I think not letting go people in what has happened, let's say in the last 5 days, and I've completely changed myself, right? I was the first guy to said, so 3 weeks back, I sent an advisory, a documented document saying, let go. It's the time to let go. We're not going to survive this. Now, that was 3 weeks back. I repeat, in the last 5 days, I've changed my stand. And I just think, and I'm being very emotional here for us, I just think that this is probably the time to build loyalty with your team. This is probably the time for you to go to your team and ask them to do twice as much they have done. And this might be a better strategy for the long term. Where we are, guys, in the world, I think I've changed my stand. Letting go of people in where we are in the world now, with the lockdowns and it not ending anywhere, and your employees are your people, right? So from being a hard ass, I've become a softie over the last five days, and by design. It's a confession, and therefore I am saying, flip. If you cannot have a hard talk with your team and you cannot let them go, and you feel this is not the right time, this is the time to make them work twice X. This is that time. If your marketing team is working for you, it's time for them to do 3 more campaigns per day, plus outsource them to somebody who does not understand marketing for another 2 campaigns. Your product team, let them write 5 more features, plus ask them to write 3 more features from somebody outside, and you make money out of it. That is probably my new ask for people. These loyalties are going to go a long time in your entrepreneur life. So I am saying the time is over to fire. I think unless you're shutting down, I mean, there's no choice, then everybody understands. If you're firing to cut, I think you can retain the team and earn some more money for yourself and your organization. Just start thinking that way. And again, apologies if this is coming as a a slightly more heartfelt versus what is right for the business.
Yeah. So one of the things that we have tried, I mean, laying off people. So we haven't, I mean, we're severely impacted. I keep repeating that, but we haven't actually laid off anyone. What we have tried to do is, beginning from the leadership team, take salary cuts and then have everyone, and it's a slab structure, depending on, where you are in the organization. The higher you are, the higher the pay cut. But we've also seen, we've also asked people to work. We've done some furloughs where we've asked people. I mean, it's not a happy situation, but we're telling them, look, as the situation improves, we'll bring you back. But we're telling them to sort of, sort of take a leave of absence for a month or 2. But I absolutely agree with you. It's a balancing act to play. You're trying to survive the company, but these are very, very hard times for people who depend on that paycheck. So I really value just the emotional appeal you're making to the entrepreneurs also. Let me just get to 1 or 2 of the questions here. There was a question here. I think again we might have covered it, but I'll ask because I feel like a lot of people are facing this. Is what do you suggest for an early stage company? It's not funded, bootstrapped, not have a great cash runway, and customers are now asking for a moratorium. How do you keep the show on?
That's a very difficult one. I think that again depends on how big is the team size and the burn. So there's no generic answer to that. But broadly, if you're dependent on the customer money, either you ask the customer to give a part of it so that you keep the lights on, So one thing which has worked out well for us in the past is just being honest with the customer, saying that, hey, if you don't pay us, we're going to shut down. And if we shut down, you won't have this support or service or the product. And in some of those cases, those customers just said, okay, you're necessary for us, here's the money. So depending on the relationship you have with those customers, you can do that, or find alternative organic ways to get more customers. I know it's a very broad generic answer, because the only other alternative is shut down and then come back once things improve and then again start it. But that's not something which seems like a reasonable option as of now.
Yeah, and I also feel that, it's also very good to be extremely transparent with the people, with your employees, with your teams. I mean, it's amazing to see if you have the right culture, how they would respond to you. And we're seeing that at RateGain. I mean, the response is just amazing. The rigor, the amount of effort people want to put in to keep the company going is very, very heartening. So, just being very transparent and open to your teams as well will enable you to come up with new ideas. And maybe it's about looking at how, I think just mentioned this, is how you could potentially pivot as well and make it more, can you pivot to, these new sectors where the demand's much higher? Okay, let me get to another question. Many of the customers in our pipeline are taking demos but not signing contracts at the moment. Any tips on what we can do to get them to close right now?
If they are going to, if they have done a demo in the last 1 week, then they are certainly your customers, right? I mean, if they've not done it in the last 1 week or 10 days, then you probably fall into discretionary spend, or as I say, you're not an aspirin, you're probably a vitamin. For these you fall in the vitamin category, not an aspirin category. But that said, if somebody, do whatever it takes, guys. I mean, give a discount, either overload the subscription time, throw some value add. If you have a product that requires, some more hand holding, setting up, say you'll do it free. Everybody understands why you're doing it. The motivations are very clear. So, I mean, hustle your way through this. If you have customers who demoed, I think you're gold. You got to go close that. And I know some companies who are cash rich, and you fall in the category of them using you, then they will be, they are reaching out and doing things. I mean, I've been talking to a bunch of people who got new contracts in the last 3 days. I mean, wow, I said, wow, this is brilliant. But yeah, there are companies like that who got that. So and there's not one, the many. So fall in that category as much as you can.
Okay, guys, so I think we're coming to the end of the session. I wanted to ask you one last question, and I want you to look into your crystal gaze and predict, when is this all going to end?
So I think the world will move to a new normal. A bunch of things which we are used to right now, like even the fact of coming to office, sitting next to each one. Do we do a handshake? What happens in a meeting? Do we go out for a beer with somebody? Will any of this be in the next 6 to 12 months? What happens to a guy who cuffs in the corner of the room? Are we going to give him a dirty look? We don't know. 6 months, definitely those social behavior. Some of those social behavior will change, but on the business side, I would still at least look at everything from a 12-month perspective. If it happens earlier, then hey, we just got better. If it doesn't happen, at least I'll be conservative on that. So 12 months, Bhanu, for me.
Yeah. So two answers. How soon will we go back to being normal? And normal means going to office and shaking a hand with your colleague. Usko to time hai abhi. That is. I mean, I don't think you're going to shake hands. The last handshakes that you've done, they are done. Your handshaking is done for a long time to go. So let's keep that aside. But yeah, macroeconomics, this is a tough one, guys. Even if the world comes back to business within this week, that's a 8-month recession. I mean, at least even if something becomes normal tonight, I think that's a year of recession that we are watching or not. And I don't think the word is recession. I think you have to coin a new word for this thing. It's not recession. ये पूरा दुनिया ही रुक गया ना, तो recession तो है कि एक sector गिरा तो उसके कारण 4 sector गिरे. ये तो the whole world has been put on this pause button. I don't think it's a recession. I think it's the time taken to come back is so high because the motor of the world has stopped. How do you get that back? So I don't think recession is the right word for this for coming back. I think it's how do you restart? Everything is down. So yeah, that's a good 12 months away certainly. The restarting of the world with this engine. I'm only seeing the benefits to nature, and in my really entitled position that we all are in, there's lots happening to the underprivileged people. I know that, and breaks the heart. But yeah, it's a tough one on that one. Yeah.
Okay, great. So guys, thank you so much for sharing valuable insights. I know everybody values them. I definitely value whatever I heard today because I think these are very, very challenging times. In summary, I would say this is, once in a lifetime, once in 100-year event. So let's acknowledge that. I think it is hard. I think what I heard from everybody today is, this is a time to sort of do introspection, reflection, and really take the opportunity to fix whatever we can internally. So ultimately, I'd like to say thank you again for joining the session today. Please be safe, please be healthy, and look forward to continuing to share insights and dialogue with the community. Over to you, Vibhor.
Thank you, Bhanu. Thank you, Pallav. Thanks, Jess. This has been brilliant. We have so many unanswered questions. I will try to compile those and see how can we answer maybe in the next session or some other way. But guys, we'll definitely get back to you with your responses. And reminder just to leave your feedback. This will help us in future for future sessions and to understand what we could do better. And once again, thank you, panelists, and we'll see you soon.